G'day YouTube, Max right here, and today I'm going to make an open letter, I guess it's an open video, to Russell Brand. And the reason is Russell Brand has just made this video you see on your screen here. He just made a video about 7 hours ago about Bitcoin. And he very humbly said he doesn't know much about it and he was just trying to learn. And so kudos to him. And at the end of just watching his video here, at the end of it, he wasn't suitably aroused, in my opinion. I don't know a lot about Russell, but the little that I think I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that he cares very, very deeply about the horrific and ever-growing wealth disparity in the world. There's no doubt the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is getting absolutely annihilated. And it's something I care very deeply about, and to my knowledge, he cares very deeply about it as well. And I believe, and have for nearly 8 years now since I first found out about Bitcoin, that it is the key, it's the absolute key to solving this problem. And so, and I understand the video he watched was about how Bitcoin worked, but it didn't really talk about why. So in the video, he watches a video explaining Bitcoin to him. And it's just kind of mechanical, and I don't think it doesn't explain why. Why is Bitcoin important? Why is it important? Why does the world need something like Bitcoin? What problem does it solve? And so I wanted to make this video to really grab the lapels of humanity, as I've been trying to do for many years, and say, guys, this solves so many of our problems. And so that's what this video is about. So I guess I want to start with what is the problem. And I've made the claim here that Bitcoin is a solution to a very serious problem, which is the wealth divide. Now, in order to understand that, so it's a couple steps, but Bitcoin is a new form of money. Okay, it's a new type of money. All right, we've had money before. What's so different about it? We'll get to that in just a second. But it's important to understand how money has played a role in that wealth divide. And we need to go on that journey so that we understand that. We understand what else is being used in money, what has been the flaws of those, and the current system, previous systems, and does Bitcoin solve all of those problems? And once we understand that, I think that everyone watching will understand that this is the key to solving the wealth divide. So let's get into that. I got right here. This is just one of the most important charts I've ever seen. And I really hope people understand and appreciate just what's going on here. Let me take some time to explain it. The dark blue line is productivity over time. It's the productivity of the worker. So as new inventions are created, steam engine, cell phones and computers and internet and all these tools make the worker more productive. And what that means is they can produce more, they can create more wealth. And now the blue line, and that's this, the dark blue line just represents that. Productivity is always going up because we're always inventing new and better tools. Okay, now the light blue line represents the hourly compensation of the typical worker, meaning the average worker in the US, adjusted for inflation. And you will see that once upon a time, the worker used to get the benefit of the productivity increases. As productivity got better, the average worker was the recipient of that, which is interesting, right? So it's almost like trickle-down economics used to work. It's like if the business was successful, if the entrepreneur came and built the factory and made the tools and gave them to the workers, and the workers were able to produce so many more widgets and products, then actually the worker used to see a real and actual increase in the quality of their life. Their hourly income, adjusted for inflation, went up very closely with the productivity increases. And everybody seemed to share in this. And as a result, in the early 1900s, America had the largest middle class the world had ever seen. And they did it without welfare and without minimum wage laws and without safety nets and without free healthcare and without Medicaid and without free degrees in universities and without funding for that, so you can get loans, student loans. Without any of these things, they created the largest middle class the world has ever seen. And it was the typical way to do this, as long as you live in like a relatively free environment where workers and business owners can go out in the marketplace and compete for each other, whatever. the trickle-down economics used to work. But then something happened. Around here, this dotted line looks like it represents 1973, but really you can even see a couple of years before that. 1971 was the magic. Something happened around this period, I'm telling you it's 1971, where something changed forever, where the worker no longer got the benefit of all of this productivity increase. Now, first of all, I just want you to think about this and quantify this so you understand how horrific and how evil and how dastardly the problem is. Think of every single invention since 1971. That's the PC, that's the internet, that's cell phones, it's just pretty much every single thing we used. All of the productivity increases that have amassed since 1971 for nearly 50 years, has not gone to the worker. It's gone somewhere else. Isn't that a mind-blowing thought? All of the productivity increases from every single invention since 1971 has not gone to the working class. It's gone to a very, very wealthy, privileged few. That is truly mind-blowing. Absolutely incredible. And we're going to figure out exactly why, exactly what happened, and exactly what's happening in the world for this to happen that has happened. So let's get into it. Prior to this, 1971, it's very simple. We had a semblance of what's called sound money. So actually, I'll take a quick step sideways. What's very important, we're talking about this as like, this has happened the world over, by the way, not necessarily 1971, but it's happened the world over, different years for different countries. And it's across the whole country. So it's not something like, New York State changed their minimum wage laws. That's not going to make this graph. That's not significant enough, right? Something cataclysmic happened, right? So it's not a small thing, it's a big thing. Money is 1/2 of every single transaction in the economy. If you go to work, you're trading your labor for money. You go to the store, you're giving them money, they're giving you product. Money is 1/2 of every single transaction in the economy. And something happened to money in 1971. The United States, the world's reserve currency, went off the gold standard. Prior to then, the amount of money the government could print was limited. It's some way, it had some correlation to the amount of gold that was found in the ground and mined and refined and brought into the warehouses of the Federal Reserve, of Fort Knox, etc. We had a semblance of sound money. There was a restriction on how much money that could be created, and it was limited to how much gold was created. Okay, in 1971, the ties to gold were severed. Right, it was gone, which means now there is no practical limit to the amount of money that the government can create. And we've seen that in the last year, post-COVID, just creating trillions upon trillions of dollars, just money being created out of thin air. But this all started back in 1971 when Nixon took us off the Bretton Woods system and the gold standard. That was the cataclysmic event that happened in 1971. So we've got a couple checks here. It was a significant event that happened to money, and it had to be to a significant thing to create this graph. Can't be about some little niche. Can't be about the healthcare industry. Can't be, it's a $1 trillion industry, but it can't be about that because that wouldn't explain this. It can't be about cell phones or communications. It can't be about the press. The only thing that's big enough to create this is something happens to the money that the country uses. That can create this. And in 1971, that's what happened. And now all ties are severed and governments can print as much money as you want. So let's pause there and understand we've identified the problem. The problem is the unfettered printing of money. Now, next question. Why is that a problem? How does that hurt? How does that destroy the middle class? Wouldn't it help one or the other? Why does it destroy the middle class and create poor and rich people? It makes no sense. I just realized, I'll just change the screen here so I'm not the little guy in the corner. All right. It's a fantastic question. To understand that, I think the easiest way to do this is to understand what counterfeiting is. Why is counterfeiting illegal? A lot of people think that counterfeiting is illegal because someone gets something for nothing. You print up a bunch of money and now you can go buy stuff. You didn't work. That's not fair. That's counterfeiting. That should be illegal. That's not the reason. Counterfeiting is illegal because it's stealing. It's not getting something for nothing. You are actually stealing from other people. How does it work? Well, if there's a bunch of money in the system and you go and create more of that money, what it does is it's stealing a little bit of the purchasing power from everybody else who has that money. The purchasing power of that money goes down because of the money that you have created. As long as it's believed. If people don't believe it, it doesn't work. But if people believe it's real currency and you can go and spend it and no one knows that it was counterfeit, then you have stolen the purchasing power. They had a $20 note in their hand. They still had a $20 note in their hand after you stole it, but the $20 buys less. To help understand that, a good way to think of it is, I've got a bowl of soup. It's a nice, nutritious soup. It's got lots of vegetables in there. I take a sip of it, right? And then I fill it up with water, so the soup is the same level, and I hand it to the next guy. The next guy takes a sip of the soup, has a little bit less nutrients than me, but still got a pretty nice sip of soup with lots of nutrients, fills it up with water, passes it down the line. Eventually, way down the line, this soup is just water, and there's no nutritional value to it whatsoever. The nutrients have been stolen out of the soup by this issue of just adding more and more water. So the amount of things that the money could buy didn't change, but the amount of notes in circulation changed. Well, now all of a sudden the value of each note, of each unit of currency, the dollar, has gone down. That's why, you know, a gallon of milk cost 5 cents 70 years ago and costs whatever it costs now, $5 now for a gallon of milk. Okay, another quick example to help you understand how inflation works. It's really easy to just strip it down to a very simple economy where there's just two actors, you and me. And I make wheat and you grow corn. And every day I've got $10 and you've got $10, and every day we kind of barter and we sell our corn and wheat, and you know, I buy yours for $5 a pound, you buy mine for $5 a pound, and this $20 circulates around the economy. And then let's take a silly example to help you understand it. I go and counterfeit $1 million. So there was a $20 in the economy, now I've just counterfeited $1 million. Now the economy has $1 million and 20 in it. Well, now I come up to you and I say, hey, I'll give you $500,000 for all the corn, all your seed, all your house, all your anything. And you go, wow, this is more money than I've ever had before. I can buy anything with this. Like, this is great. Give me the money, I'll go crazy. And so I give you the $500,000 and I take everything. And now you come, well, you got $500,000. What are you gonna do? It's like, okay, he goes, oh, that thing over there that you got, I've always wanted that. I'll buy off that for $5. It's like, no, I don't accept that price. Well, what about $100,000? It's like, no, not really. I mean, I've got everything I want. I've still got another $500,000 over here. I printed $1 million. I gave you $500,000. I've still got $500,000 there. I've got nothing to spend it on, and I don't really want anything. And so I'm going to give you something that I want, just so you're going to give me more paper, which I just printed out of nothing. No deal. And so you just got beat by inflation. The cost of the goods that I had, the wheat and the corn, whatever, skyrocketed because of counterfeiting. I printed money, and there was massive inflation. Inflation measures you think inflation measures the price of everything. What it's really doing is it's measuring the degree to which the purchasing power has been stolen from the money. And in that case, it was infinity, because his money became worthless. He couldn't buy anything from me because I had a chunk of it, I had an infinite amount of it, and he was never going to get it. That mechanism of theft is when you counterfeit money is equally true whether it's done illegally or legally. When money is printed, remember in the example I said it was counterfeited, which just means it's printed illegally. If you print it legally, someone passes a law that says you're allowed to do it, and you print up a bunch of money, the same thing still happens. The soup still gets weaker. The price of goods still goes up. All of those things still happen. And so we live in a situation where people do not know about you. Everyone knows you pay your income taxes, you earn money, and you send off a portion to the government, all right? And some comes and you give off a portion to the government. That's income tax. You pay it every year, and then you think you're free and clear, and you've got some money, and you can save it. You can just build it over time, and you can save. You can save for a deposit for a house, and you can save for lifestyle. You can save for investments. You can save for cool things. What people don't know, very few people understand, is that there is another tax on your savings, and that tax is called inflation. Because governments all around the world have given certain individuals, certain institutions, the privilege of having the monopoly to legally counterfeit the money. which steals the purchasing power of your savings. And I bet plenty of the viewers have lived through this. Have you ever in your life been saving for a house and you work really hard, you save really hard, and you live below your means, and every month you get to sweep $100, $200, $300 into your savings account? The bank account goes up and up and up and up and up. But have you ever been one of those people with a situation where the cost of the house is going up more and more and more and more? It's like you had $20,000 in the bank one year and you were saving it, $25,000, I can put the deposit down for my house. And by the time you save the $25,000, that extra $5,000, you were so close. But then the cost of the house has gone up so much, you need $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 for the deposit for that house. That is the inflation tax being stolen from the purchasing power of your money. Your bank account went up and up and up, but the purchasing power was stolen. It's a brilliant crime because no one knows it happened. They see their money going up, and they think, well, houses went up, it's good for investments. No, the purchasing power of your money was stolen. That's what happened. So now that you understand that, you have to understand that, and I think that case of the saving for the house is a very, very good example. There is a threshold in society, another thing, the inflation tax is the most insidious and evil tax of all. It's way worse than income tax, which is the second worst tax of all. It's way worse than the consumption tax. It's way worse than all the other taxes. Why? It attacks poor people the most. When they're printing money, and in the last few years they printed trillions all across the globe, that attacks poor people. It creates poor people. Why and how? This inflation tax causes the price of everything to rise. The food you eat, also the investments that you buy, everything, right? So, when you're a worker on low income and you just make enough to get by, you make $30,000 a year. The vast majority of what you get to save, you've got to pay your taxes, if you pay taxes at that level, whatever. And the vast majority of what you spend is on just living, just getting by. It's your rent, it's your food, it's your gas, it's your car payment, it's just the things you need to just survive. And you have a very, very small amount to save and to start investing. All right? And so the cost of the things you need go up and up and up, and it's harder and harder to save and harder to live, thrive, and survive. And your savings are getting eaten away. You're trying to save up for that first house. You're trying to save up for that first investment property. You're trying to save up for, have a decent amount of money to put in the stock market. And you can never get there because that number keeps chasing away from you. If you're rich, let's say you earn $1 million a year, your food bills are going up, but how much do you spend on food and low groceries and just getting by? Let's have an extravagant lifestyle, $100,000, $200,000 a year on food and groceries and the nice car and the gas for it and the vacation. Okay, but then you still got hundreds of thousands of dollars left over to go into investments. And when you buy these investments, it can be anything, real estate, stock market, Bitcoin, anything. When you buy these investments, you get this virtuous cycle. Because of all the money printing, the value of those investments go up and up and up and up and up. So the rich person gets richer. Meanwhile, the poor person, they're trying to become an investor. They're trying to save. But unless they hit a threshold where their productivity is sufficient, they're living below their means sufficiently, and they're saving enough, they can never ever save enough because the inflation tax is eating at their savings, and it creates a spiral down. For the rich, they're buying assets, they're buying houses, they're buying investment properties, they're buying stocks, and those things, inflation's going up, they create a virtuous cycle that way. They get richer and richer and richer, and the poor gets poorer and poorer and poorer. And you get a hollowing out of the middle class. It's absolute destruction for the middle class. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And it all depends if you can hit that threshold to save enough, fast enough, where inflation tax doesn't eat all of your purchasing power of your savings. Now, as they print more money, that threshold goes up and up and up. Now, if you look, the Fed tells you, the Federal Reserve tells you, we are targeting 2% inflation. And they've just put it up. But they were targeting stealing 2% of your wealth, the poorest people's wealth in the country. And the government are the ones who get to measure inflation, I'll give you a little secret, they're understating it, they're lying to you, it's much higher. So the Fed's targeting 2% inflation, that is, they're targeting to steal 2% from you, and they're actually measuring it pretty poorly, so when it says it's 2% inflation, it's probably closer to 10% inflation. And the more they print, the more money they print, the higher that threshold goes up, the more people slip below it, and they start spiraling down to poverty, and the fewer people start spiraling up to prosperity. That is the biggest problem in the world by orders of magnitude. What's the solution to this? The answer is, and you can see it from the chart, is sound money. What is sound money? It is money that cannot be printed infinitely. It is the printing of money that causes this problem. It's the printing of money that hollows out the middle class and creates that massive wealth divide. So, there are people who benefit enormously from this, and they understand very, very well. They have been, you can see here right from the graph, just in 1971, how much wealth. Think of all the productivity that has not trickled down to the working class and has been accumulated by a handful of privileged people. They use that money to buy television networks, news stations, newspapers, political parties, bribery, blackmail, thuggery, and they will control the narrative. They will control what people understand. They will control what people think they know. And there's a reason that for many of you, this understanding of what inflation is brand new to you. I know a lot of people have think, oh, well, if we could just fix minimum wage, or we can just raise minimum wage, or if we can just get more welfare, if we could just make education free, or if we can just make, all complete nonsense. I don't blame any of those people for thinking that and for trying that. We all, look, you don't know what you don't know. And so I can't blame anybody for, suggesting those solutions. They sound good in theory. I can promise you with absolute certainty, they will not help. In fact, they'll make it much worse. What will help is sound money, meaning money they cannot print. And once people understand that and start demanding that, now you find yourself in a situation where you can take steps. You can get there. You can find ways to protect your savings. So now it's time to understand, do I want to go there? Yes, I'll say this. Okay, we'll take a step here. Gold. Gold used to be used as money, and you saw in the chart prior to 1971, gold was backing the US dollar to some degree, and the workers experienced the benefit of the productivity increases of society. So all you need to know is gold is sound money. You can't just print it ad nauseum. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of heat to go and mine, dig through the dirt, burn all the fossil fuels to go and dig it up and get it, and it put a cap on the amount of money that could be created. Therefore, it was sound money because it can't be created infinitely. That's what sound means. Gold worked because it was sound money. However, gold has a fatal flaw. And its fatal flaw is this. The Federal Reserve System, which is, by the way, that's the system in the US, but this concept of central banks is universal across the planet. All of the Western countries have it, and this concept of inflation works in every country in the world. The people that are benefiting from this and capturing all of that wealth and using it to buy up everything and creating the narratives and controlling the education, controlling the messaging, they will not tolerate losing their privileged position of being the only ones to legally counterfeit the money. They will not lose it. They will start wars over it. They will go to all the ends of the earth. They will do it. They will keep that thing. So, in the past, there has been plenty of people. I know most people don't get it, but there's been plenty of people, just little groups here and there of a few thousand people, a few tens of thousands of people, a few 100,000 people, and say, listen, we understand this, and we want to use gold as money. We see the theft that is going. We don't want to be the victims of inflation tax. So as money comes in, I'm going to pay my bills and I'm going to start saving my money in gold, and it would be great to be able to use gold as a service, or else the cost of getting into gold and getting out of gold, it makes it cost prohibitive. So we just want to be able to use gold to buy our goods and services. There's been small little communities who have done that. And they do it very effectively. There's two ways to do it, and each one has a flaw. And Bitcoin solves that problem, and we'll get to in a minute. So you have to understand these two flaws. If we all just have it individually, we all just have, like, 1500s, we're running around with little purses with gold coins in it, or silver coins work just as well, by the way. The problem is it's not built for a digital age. How do you actually, you can't buy anything online with your little gold coins, and you can't, think of how clumsy it would be to, like, go to a coffee store and, give a silver coin and get some back and all that kind of nonsense. It's not suitable for the 21st century. Now, this problem is easily solved. What you can do is we can all just, like, buy some gold and send it to a centralized vault somewhere. And we all just, I've got 5 grams of gold in there, and you've got 10 grams of gold, and someone else got 100 grams of gold, and it's all just sitting there. And they keep a track of how much gold is there. And that solves this first problem of gold. And so if I want to go, I've got an app on my phone, and I want to buy something online at Amazon, and say, hey, company, deduct 1 gram of gold from my account and add it to Amazon's account. And the cost of that transaction would be near zero. It's just the gold is still in the vault. It's not moving anywhere. They don't have to physically move it. But the company is there, and they just, Amazon's got an account there, I've got an account there, and they just change the ledger. It would be, the cost of the transaction would be zero. In order to make gold a good and useful money in the 21st century, you have to go and put it in a centralized location, a vault, all right? And it's been done many, many times. Like I said, there's been plenty of groups and institutions who have started this and said the world needs it. Now, it'll work fantastically. People can go, people can go and save their money in gold and start using it, and they will no longer suffer the inflation tax because the value of gold goes up as they print the money, like everything else. You can protect yourself from the inflation tax by using gold. Well, the people who benefit from the money printing, they don't like this. So what they do, they use their people in media and everything else, and they create a narrative that, oh my God, see that company over there that they're calling themselves gold money or something, or they're using money for gold, or whatever they're calling themselves? Terrorists are using that to fund terrorism. Tax evaders are using it for money laundering. Drug cartels are using it for money laundering. Bad people are using that. Plus, think of how disgusting the environmental consequences of mining gold is. There's all these big dirty rigs running around dirty, filthy mines, creating all these pollutants. We have to go and we have to stop that. We have to stop the terrorism, stop the money laundering, and men with guns, on behalf of the people who benefit from the money printing, go in and steal all the gold. This has happened over and over and over again. Whenever the citizens try and help themselves to get away from this insidious inflation tax that causes poverty, with gold, men with guns come and steal it. Period. It's happened every single time. I don't blame the men with guns. They're just police officers. They're just whatever. There's some task force. There's some government agency, and they're being used as foot soldiers to protect the privilege of the cartel who gets to print money. Okay, now we are ready finally to get to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is gold 2.0. It still is sound money, just like gold, with one very important addition. There's actually, I'm simplifying the things here, there's actually several differences, and most of them good on behalf of Bitcoin, but the real one, the thing that is most important, is that it cannot be destroyed. Men with guns are useless against it. Men with guns cannot come and steal all the Bitcoin. It cannot be done. And what this means is that the people, the citizens, the poor, the formerly middle class, finally have a way to protect themselves from the inflation tax. And the people who were stealing from them with inflation lose their income, their purchasing power income. They lose their privilege. And they will fight, and they will create narratives around Bitcoin trying to destroy it, saying it's bad for the environment, saying it's used by money launderers, saying it's used by tax invaders. They'll do all the same tricks that they did against gold, but it won't work. It will not work against Bitcoin because Bitcoin cannot be destroyed by men with guns. What is Bitcoin fundamentally? It is the ledger. It is the ledger. It's in the cloud. It can be on tens of thousands of computers. And men with guns can come and get 9,999 computers and destroy them all. And that one computer, which still has a copy of the ledger, can put it on 10,000 more computers the next day. And for that reason, Bitcoin cannot be destroyed. And if you want to, for all the people out there, and I know I'm speaking to so many people, if you're one of those people who are below that threshold, you've been saving for that first house, you've been saving for that first investment property, you've been saving for something for years and years and years, and every day you're sacrificing your lifestyle trying to get ahead, and as you're putting the money in the savings account, the thing that you're trying to buy, that first house, that first investment, it just goes up and up and up, it gets further out of reach. It's because you're saving in dollars. You, for the first time ever, have a tool which you can use to defeat the inflation tax. And I challenge everybody, if you're out there and you're in that horrific and brutal cycle where you save and get nowhere, if you were saving $100 a week, start putting $100 a week in Bitcoin. It is sound money. Start putting your $100 a week in Bitcoin. And I can promise you, you can talk to people who were doing this 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Anybody who was doing this can now buy the house. Just $100 a week. Just buy Bitcoin. $100 a week. $100 a week. And you will defeat the inflation tax and you can get ahead. That is the story of Bitcoin. And it is here to stay. It cannot be defeated. The people who would do anything and everything to destroy it, and they'll try the narratives and they'll say the bad things about it and they'll harass people and they'll do all the things. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin cannot be destroyed. And that is why it is humanity's savior. It is sound money that the people who control the world and the government and the political parties all over the planet and want to protect their privilege of money printing and illegal counterfeiting, they've destroyed everything else we've thrown at them and they can't destroy Bitcoin. And when you get that, you understand why Bitcoin people are Bitcoin fanatics. This is the savior of humanity. This is the thing that rebuilds the middle class and solves the problem of the horrific and growing wealth divide. Whew, I hope you get that, guys. Now, there's some technical stuff to Bitcoin. It's kind of interesting how it works. Obviously, this is not a video about how it works, but I do want to mention something on the topic. Bitcoin is it's a computer program and it's open source, meaning that the code is available for everybody to use and see and verify. And millions upon millions upon millions of eyes have looked at the code and confirmed for you that it does exactly what I'm saying it does. At the end of the day, it's two things you need to know. It's sound money and it can never be shut down by the government. Once you understand that, if you understand your history of money, if you understand what's causing the wealth divide, you will understand that you can be part of the system that rebuilds the middle class and makes the rich poorer and makes the poor richer. It will create a very flat society, not perfectly fat, which is not a good goal to go for, by the way, but a significantly flatter, not a really rich and a really poor, a significantly flatter society with a massive middle class. When I saw that in 2012, when I first understood Bitcoin, I was aroused. And I hope, Russell, that this, if you happen to watch it, I hope that this now gets you suitably aroused, what I consider suitably aroused over what Bitcoin is and what it can do for humanity. Guys, if you like this, please go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You know what? I'll do something else. I made a little mini documentary about 8-9 years ago about the history of money. It fleshes this idea out in more detail with some cool graphics and something like that. So I'll release that tomorrow for you guys. If you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and please share this video, because for all those people who are below that threshold, struggling to get ahead in life, this is the solution. This is the solution. You can now get ahead in life and start saving, which will eventually get you to the point where you can start buying assets. But the reality is Bitcoin is already an asset that's appreciating so fast, you wouldn't really want to buy anything else. You'll just keep hoarding Bitcoin like everybody else does. All right, guys, take care. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.